All right, what we're going to be working with today is percent applications. There's a lot of different types of percent applications, but there is one thing that we have to do, and the first thing is we always have to change the percent to a decimal. So remember, if I have 25%, that becomes 25 cents. If I have 10%, that becomes 10 cents. If I have 5%, that becomes 5 cents. And then also, if I have 242%, that would become $2.42. So you have to be able to go from percent to decimal, and so that's the big thing. All right, there's a couple different types of increase problems. The first type of increase problem is tax. And then the second type you might see is something called markup. When stores buy things, they mark up the price so that they can get some profit too. And then another thing you might see is inflation. And inflation is, if you've ever heard your parents or your grandparents talk about how they used to be able to buy a candy bar for 25 cents, that's inflation. Over time, things and prices increase, and that percent increase is called inflation. Percent decrease problems, those are usually our sales and discounts. Okay. All right, so let's look at some problems. We got an MP3 player, and we have to pay tax on it. So the first thing I need to do is I need to change that to a decimal. And so now I'm going to pay 5% of my total cost for the MP3. And remember, of is multiplying. So I'm going to do 0.05 times 79.95. And what I get is I get 39975. Well, what I have to do is I have to figure out what kind of money that is. And this is the money part, right? But I do have to look at what's behind it. I have to look at this 7. Does that 7 make this $3.99, or does it round it up to $4? Well, you're right. It rounds it up to $4. So you're paying $4 in tax. Well, remember what we said? Tax is an increase problem, so we're going to add. And what I have to add that to is I have to add that to my original price of $79.95. And so I add my $4. And so with tax, my MP3 player is going to cost $83.95. All right, let's look at the one on the right. Same thing I have to do is the first thing I got to do is I got to change my percent to a decimal, which is 0.20. And now I'm paying 20% of the original cost of $42.88. And so of, remember, is multiplying. So I'm going to do 0.20 times 42.88. And I get 8.576. Well, again, I have to think of this as money and take care of my money correctly. This is my money. And so I have to look at this 6 and see what it does. Does it keep it $8.57, or does it round it up to $8.58? And you're right, this one does round it up again to $8.58. Now this is savings because it's on sale. So for savings and sales, these are minus problems. So I'm going to do my original cost, $42.88, and I'm going to minus the money that I'm saving. And so 42.88 minus 8.58, and I get $34.30. So after the sale, the new cost of the jeans are $34.30. All right, let's look at some examples. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try number 1 and 2. And when you think you have it, press play so you could check your work against what I do. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you started off by making your percent into a decimal. And then I'm paying 30% of that, so I multiply. Now the question is, does this stay 1648 or 1649? And you should have rounded it to 49 cents. And so now I'm going to subtract $54.95 minus $16.49. And again, I'm subtracting because it's savings. So the jacket ends up costing $38.46 after being on sale 30% off. Over here on the right, the first thing you should have done was you should have changed your percent to a decimal, so that's 4%. And then you do 4% times $79.99. Well, again, I have an issue here because I got to figure out if that's $3.19 or $3.20. And this one also rounds up, so it's $3.20 tax. And remember, tax is an increase, so I'm going to add it. So I'm going to do $79.99 plus $3.20, and that gives me $83.19. And that's how much the shoes cost after tax. Now, sometimes you're going to have a problem where you're saving money and you pay tax. And when you have a problem like that, what you need to do is you need to do the decrease first. So sales first. Tax is last. Okay, so this is the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do 25%. And so it's going to be 25% of my $195 TV. And when I multiply that, I get $48.75. That's nice because I don't have to round because it's perfect. So this is my savings. So since that's my savings, I'm going to subtract that from my $195. And so 195 minus 48.75 gives me $146.25. Well, that took care of the sale. Now I need to take care of tax. Okay, well, tax is 7%. And I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to do 7% of how much the TV cost me. Well, I don't do the original cost because I'm not paying that much. I'm paying this $146. So that's what I'm going to multiply by. And so 7% times $146.25 gives me $10.2375. And so again, I have to think about my money, and I have to round how my money would be. Include that 3. And so for my money, this 7, does it make it become a 24 cents or keep it at 23 cents? You're right, it's going to bump it up to 24 cents. So that's my tax. Now I know that I add tax, but the question is, what do I add the tax to? Do I add it to my original price of the TV, the $195, or to my sale price of the TV, $146? You're right if you said your sale price, $146.25. And so now, after my sale and with my tax, I'm going to be paying $156.51. Not 51 cents, but 49 cents. Let's erase that. Oops. So that's the final answer. That's with the sale and with the tax. So let's go try one for you to do. Remember that you need to do the sale first. So go ahead and try number 3. Right here, calculate the sale first and then tax. And when you think you have it, press play. Okay, so the first thing you should have done was change 25% to a decimal and we multiplied by original cell phone cost. And this tells me that I'm saving $49.75. Since I'm saving that, I'm going to subtract that from original price. And so this is my new cell phone cost. But now I need to find tax. And so I multiply 7% by my new cost. And I get $10.44 or 45 cents. So we have to look and see, what does this become? And this 7, again, we keep having to round up. You won't always round up. So this becomes $10.45 in tax. So I'm going to take my original, not my original, but my new cost of the cell phone, and I'm going to add my $10.45. And so I get $159.70. And now that's my total bill for my cell phone after being 25% off and taxes 7%, not 5%. All right, let's look at the last type of problem. The last type of problem is simple interest. I'm going to highlight it. I kind of wrote on it here, but hopefully that's okay. Let's see if I can drag this down some, maybe. There we go. And then I'll just move my highlighting. Okay, so now for simple interest, what I need to know is I need to just know what these things are. I represents interest earned. P represents principal. This is how much you start with. This is the money you start off with. R represents the rate, which is percent as a decimal. Remember, everything needs to be decimal. And T represents time, and this is usually in years. Eventually, we'll get to problems that aren't years, but we're going to start off with years here. So let's go down and do our couple examples. And so I need to start off by just writing my formula, I equals PRT. So my principal for this one is $24,500. I'm going to times that by my percent, which is 0.05 as a decimal, and I'm going to times that by 8 for years. So 24,500 times 0.05 times 8, and after 8 years, I have $9,800 in interest. Okay. Over here, same thing. This is my principal, so I have 2,100. 7.3, that's going to be 0.073, and then times 15. So now I just times that in my calculator. And this time, after 15 years, I will have $2,299.50. So interest is not that hard of a formula. It's just remembering to multiply and that it's P, R, and then T.